Okay, Andy, we're up. A couple seconds of silence. Hi out there, Blab Land. I guess YouTube too, because we'll be there. Say hi. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the New Timeline Show. Today we have Andy Sokolovich. Hopefully, I think I said that right, didn't I, Andy? Andy Sokolovich?
That was close enough, my friend. Sokolovich.
Sokolovich. Very good. And Andy has a podcast. He's an entrepreneur. I'm not quite sure if you're solopreneur, but he's definitely a veteran. 11 years in the Air Force as an air traffic controller, a combat vet. So we get to put him in that combat vet role. We need to make a separate category on these podcasts for those combat vets. And I've got a lot of questions to ask him. He has such an interesting background. We want to find out, why did you get out of the Air Force, and why did you become an entrepreneur, and how did you get to where you are today? And we know that you're doing some amazing things with your podcast and with your education and training. So Andy, tell us where you are today and how you got there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. My name is, again, Andy Sokolovich, and I own two businesses. I am a solopreneur. I guess that's the official term, is that I run businesses by myself with my business partner, I guess, being my wife. She does all the background, and I'll talk a little bit more of that as we discuss StrengthsFinder. But I started to Bent Business Marketing, bentbusinessmarketing.com. In 2012, I left the military in 2011, moved to the quiet town of Clinton, Iowa, here in the Midwest, and decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. The first thing I started to do was look around for voids in the market, and it was a small community really where the internet was just making a splash, and this is 2011, mostly farming and industrial type jobs, and I noticed that there was a big void where individual businesses weren't leveraging the power of the internet to build up their social capital as well as brand awareness. So I kind of taught myself a little bit about web development, a little bit about graphic design. 2012 felt comfortable launching Bent Business Marketing. And then my wife says she wishes I would just stick with one thing and focus on that for a while. But unfortunately, I'm like that those dogs from the movie Up, squirrel. I find something and I kind of run towards it. And when I left the military, people started asking me, 11 years, you were a vet as well, sir. So 11 years active duty. People started asking me, what are your natural talents? What do you, Andy Sokolovich, do well? I wore a uniform, cut my hair a certain way, did the job that I was asked to do, had a lot of pride in doing so, but there wasn't a lot of individualization. There wasn't a lot of introspective thought into who I was as a person. So that question kind of took me by surprise. And it got to the point where I said, man, what am I good at? I can land an aircraft at airport B, depart it over to airport A, C, D, back and forth, hundreds of miles of airspace without crashing, which was great. But who was I as an individual? What were my natural talents? And an assessment was introduced to me called the Clifton StrengthsFinder. And I took the assessment, which I did not want to take an assessment. It was one of those things where the word assessment kind of made me crawl. I thought, nobody's going to tell me who I am. But I did. I took the assessment, and it revealed some amazing things about me. It really showed me my strengths and also highlighted some areas of lesser talent where I was just wasting gobs and gobs of time. So the passion of that assessment and my own results, I wanted to start teaching others how to embrace that information. And Gallup was hosting a coaching class. And I said, how do I get into this? How do I become a coach? And they said, the right price is $7,500. You too can become a Gallup Certified Strengths Coach. And I knew that was going to be a huge dent in my wallet, and there was just no way financially that we could swing that. So I actually crowdsourced some of the money. Nice. I started a crowdfunding campaign, launched a video out there, tried to generate some buzz about what I was trying to do, just made a quick video of me being passionate about wanting to pursue this certification. Did I need it? No. Did I want to have it? Yes. Did I think it would help me impact a broader audience? Absolutely. And I was able to actually raise the funds. And in May of 2014, joined a few of my friends at Gallup down at the riverfront there in Omaha, Nebraska, and was certified as a Gallup Strengths Coach. Now I have a business, UnleashStrengths.com, where I help other larger businesses, nonprofits, corporations identify the natural talents of their staff, of their supervisory level staff, their management, so they can leverage those talents and strengths every single day to be productive and effective.
Does
that answer your question? So that's what I've been up to over the last 4 years since I've been out of the military.
Do you have another window open?
Do I have another window open? No.
We have an echo. Also. That's
I do not.
Had an echo only when we've had another window. But that's okay. We'll drive through it.
No, I experienced that the other night on a blab, and it just went away.
Well, folks, that's what you get. We're doing this on iTunes. When you listen to it, that was the blabism.
Yeah.
I still worry about blab, but it's working. It's working great. So that's a great story, and I know it's really a good time to jump into the Strengths Finder. But before we do, I want to ask you a couple of questions. You got out of the Air Force at 11 years. Now, I listened to your podcast, your last podcast, episode 30-something, 34, and you told us why you got out of the Air Force. Why don't you tell the listeners here at Timelines why you got out?
I don't quite remember what I say. My answer to that question usually doesn't slip too far off of repeating what I said prior, but I think it's 11 years in the military. A great time. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I was looking for something else. I got to the point kind of in the career where I had an overwhelming desire to help others succeed. And my wife will tell you, I always had an entrepreneurial itch. I was never the type of person really to, stay within the box, color within the lines, or follow the status quo. And I think the longer and longer that I served, the longer and longer I had this feeling of I want to do something else. I want to do something bigger. And as my family began to expand, my wife got out of the military. She was active duty as well. When she became pregnant with our first child, she separated honorably. Then she became pregnant with my son. And I thought, I'm ready for a change. I'm ready to try something. And we got to understand, when I left the military in 2011, I had no idea how to podcast. I really was only using social media just for personal use. I really didn't know anything about websites. I would just go to websites and buy stuff. Every once in a while, I would use it for my own resource or for learning experiences, but I didn't know any of that. And I just thought there's got to be more. I crave information. I love learning new skills and then applying that knowledge. And I think that was one of my driving forces for getting out of the military, was I just was thirsty for more.
That's basically what you said on your last podcast, almost verbatim. So you got it down. You wanted to change. That's hard to do, though. You had 11 years, and usually say after 10, you're supposed to stay in.
That was the norm, and don't get me wrong, there was a lot of people upset, and I actually had a line number for my next stripe. So when I got out, people were a little upset at me that I was making that switch. But, I sat back and I looked at 11 years dedicated to the military. I got out of high school and left. There was no party period. There was no soil and oats. It was just boom. I was in the Air Force, 18 years of age. Then September 11th hit 2001. And before I knew it, there was only a few years later, I was being deployed to Iraq in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Yep. My wife deployed in 2008. So we had a family that served. That was the hardest thing. I'll tell you what, when I laced up my boots and I grabbed my M16 and I boarded that plane to go over to Iraq, that was one thing. Driving your wife to the airport in uniform with an M16 is a completely different feeling altogether. I tell you, when I went over, I felt nervous. When she went over, I felt sick.
I think it's a lot tougher on the dependents than it is when you deploy, because you know what's going on when you deploy. You know when when things are okay and when things aren't okay, and when you're in a tight spot. But the dependents never know.
Yeah,
and things are so classified and tightened up.
Yeah, I actually recall my mom calling, and she's a little bit of a worrywart. So I love her to death. And, I'm her only child, and we have a very strong bond. But there was times where my mom would talk to me and we would get bombed or mortared or rocketed.
Yep. The air bases get rocketed every day.
And I would have to get off the phone. I would always make up a little excuse like, oh, Mom, I'm going to go to the chow hall and get some grub. And to this day, unless she listens to this podcast, she probably doesn't realize, because I painted a pretty picture of what it was like over there. But
oh my, yeah, all the big air bases are always firing rockets into them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the control tower is like right there in the middle.
Yeah,
zero. Aim at the control tower.
Like Paradise, the tallest building on base, surrounded by glass. So it was it was interesting. We actually had, when I was there, we had one rocket come and it just pegged a C-5's right wing. And
oh my.
So it's you take things for granted until you see munitions start flying past your head, and that's when you start to realize, like, life is pretty short. But I think that kind of plays into my mentality these days. I'm very active in my community in Clinton, Iowa, and people jokingly, one gentleman actually referred to me, I think it was a little bit aggressive, and I don't think he's a very nice person for saying it, but he referred to me as the town jester, because I do joke around quite a bit. I know when to take things seriously, and I know when not to. And a gentleman the other day kind of summed it up. He said, Andy, you know when to stand at attention and when to stand at ease. And I don't take myself very seriously. I try to do things to benefit others. I love my businesses. I love my wife, but I also want to live life to the fullest, because there's not many times where you get to experience the fact that your life is fragile. Right. When you have munitions running past your face, boy, that becomes a reality really, really quickly. And, but that's why I love podcasting too, because we talk about podcasting, but man, it's a very individualized type of platform. Everybody's podcast like a thumbprint. It sounds different. I've never listened to a podcast and I listened to somebody else's where I said, oh, they sound the same. Sure, they may do a similar intro or something like that. Everybody's got their own inflection in their voice. Everybody's got their own little pauses. Jim Collison and I often joke because he always says like for sure or something. And I say awesome all the time. And it's cool to listen to those little individual things that we do that are so unique to ourselves. That's why I think podcasting is so cool, because you can turn it around and you can make it yours and own it.
Yeah, you have it and keep it up. $5 a month, you can keep it up on Libsyn indefinitely. And I have one little podcast. It's not about me, but I have a political podcast. So I need to add them whenever I feel like it. I'll add one to it. A little commentary. And I try to stay nonpartisan, especially with this election. Holy smoly. So tell us more about it's the accredited strength. It's a strength coach, right? Accredited strength coach.
Strength finder. So
the test is like $15, isn't it?
It's $15 now. Yeah, Gallup just raised the price. But here's the thing. For $15, not only are you getting access to your top 5, which is an amazing value because it's completely revealing, but you're also getting a copy of the ebook version of StrengthsFinder 2.0, which retails on Amazon on a hardback for $15 itself. So like I said earlier, StrengthsFinder provided me with a compass. I was just reaching for low-hanging fruit and really any vine to save my life in the quicksand of life, because I was just trying to figure out how am I going to become successful. And when you get out of the military and you have no business sense whatsoever, I don't have an MBA. I agree. You're thinking to yourself, what am I going to do? And what that assessment taught me, again, the assessment's called the Clifton Strengths Finder. And if you go to GALLUPStrengthsCenter.com, that's Gallup, GALLUP, StrengthsCenter.com, you can purchase it there. But what that quickly showed me is that my top 5 are strategic, futuristic, woo, ideation, and communication. Strategic basically means that I can see a clear path where other people just see a mess. I can kind of see where things, and that would play really well in air traffic control, especially if you're a pilot, you can appreciate that. So futuristic means that I like to think about the future. I like to constantly think about how things are evolving and where they can possibly go from here. And then WOO is an acronym that stands for winning others over. And it just basically means that Andy, I love to go out and shake hands and meet new people. And Gallup often says that people with high WOO say there's no strangers, just people they haven't met yet. And that's kind of the way that I think. And then ideation means that Andy's always got ideas. I always have ideas, whether they're ideas that need to be implemented today or they're ideas where people sit back and go, wow, that's pretty far-fetched. It's always rattling in my brain. I'm the type of guy who has a notebook next to his bed because when I wake up in the middle of the night, I got to turn over and quick write something down so I don't forget it. And then communication is why I love podcasting. Boy, if you love to talk, if you love to hear the sound of your own voice, or if you like to communicate with people across the globe, start a podcast. And that's just that leads right into those top 5 strengths. But what it taught me also is when I revealed my bottom 5, which we define as our lesser talents, that I was spending so much time on the logistics of running a business that I absolutely hated, taxes, invoicing, things like that. I was spending so much time on that, probably 80%, that I was completely ignoring what I was naturally good at. And it was sucking the life out of me. So what the assessment revealed was I needed to get out and meet people. I needed to get on boards. I need to go to networking events. I needed to go to seminars, and I needed to figure out a way to manage those weaknesses by outsourcing those areas of my lesser talents or perceived weaknesses. Luckily, I have a wife who is very strong where I am weak, and then vice versa. Good. So we balanced each other out. I got rid of some of that stuff that was clogging up a majority of my time and reducing my effectiveness and productivity. And once I started to kind of engage that strengths-based development and aim those natural strengths that I had, boy, I tell you what, things really started to pick up for me, and it was amazing.
That's good, Andy. I was laughing at some of the things. And can you hear the feedback right now?
I cannot, no.
if you can't hear, I'm going to keep on talking through it. It's gone away.
Yeah.
So that is some of the things I had to laugh at some of the things you said, because sometimes the military, did you go through total quality management? Probably not in the Air Force.
I don't believe so. No.
I did. They used to have it, then they sort of got rid of it. And that's the idea of constant improvement. But when I transferred to the Army, I had to laugh because I remember in Bagram Air Force Base, I was a brigade. And on the doors of the JAG, it says, shoot the good idea fairy. Just do your work. Just do your orders. Follow forward. Don't think, just react. Just do it. No more inventions. No more good ideas.
But that's the mentality of Homeland Defense, and that's how the military operates. And it's effective. And this is what I tell everybody when I talk about my time in the military. I said, what they're doing is not wrong. The military could never try to foster individual talents. It doesn't work that way. It's a systematic approach to Homeland Defense, and it's effective. But But businesses don't need to operate that way. They have the ability and they can move laterally. They can engage people in their talents, and they can say, listen, like somebody came to me and said, Andy, you're a good air traffic controller, but man, you would make a better intel officer. I'm not going to become an intel officer overnight. But if you go to somebody who's in sales and you say, you're really kind of not a great salesman, but you've got these natural abilities to just crunch numbers and come up with amazing things, maybe you should be in accounting. Have you ever put any thought into that? And just because you need to have the qualifications at that time, we need to start fostering those natural talents and allow people to go from good to great, as opposed to staying in that okay to good zone. I don't want to be there. That's where 90% of America sits, is that okay to good. There's a lot of people are they're not scared, but they haven't really been given that permission to harness their natural abilities and go from good to great. And it's so much easier when you do what comes naturally to you. When you start going against the grain, you cause nothing but heat and friction. And I'm telling you what, it is so tough. You're never going to get to that great pinnacle.
You have to know your why. Now, you said you like to go out and meet people to woo, and you like to see people face to face. Well, we can do it like this, but do you like to go out and shake hands and actually see people face to face?
I do. Yeah, I do. I absolutely love it. And I just was recently accepted into Leadership Iowa program, which is a statewide leadership program here, obviously in the state of Iowa. And it's going to be an opportunity for me to meet new people, network, shake hands, and this is the thing that people don't really understand about woo. And this is, again, leaping into the Strengths Finder side of it, winning others over. That doesn't mean I'm a greasy haired used car salesman that's going to sell you a jalopy. A lot of times we get perceived as just that snake oil salesman, and that's not the case. But what we need to also remember about our strengths is that if we use that too aggressively, that's going to put people in the defense. So although I do enjoy doing that, I also have matured enough now that since I've become strengths aware to realize when I'm laying that on a little too thick. So when I go to networking events, I can pretty much look around the audience, engage who's going around and shaking hands, who's meeting with people, and then I make my rounds. And it's not about shaking everybody's hand. It's about actually shaking somebody's hand and fostering a connection or a relationship. And that's really the bang for the buck. I mean, that's what gets you in the door. And any success that I have since I started these businesses has been directly related to connections that I've made because of that natural talent.
Now, Clinton, that's on the Missouri River on the east.
Mississippi. It's on the east.
Excuse me. I meant to say Mississippi on the east side of the country. You got Missouri, the big muddy, and then on the other side of the country, you got Clinton.
Yep, smack dab.
How big is Clinton? Clinton
is a small town. Its population is 26,000. And I've lived in the smaller communities, but it's one of those things when I first moved here with a last name like Sokolovich, people were like, who are you? Who's your father? Who's your grandfather? And I never thought I would move someplace where they would want to know who my father or grandfather was in order to kind of understand who I was as an individual. And I said, well, my dad's in Reading, Pennsylvania. My grandfather passed away. What do you need, a blood sample? So it was kind of interesting coming to a small town where everybody knows your name. It's really like Cheers, but I've kind of grown to love that, because when I go and I visit larger cities, I kind of get excited driving back to Clinton, Iowa, because it's comfortable for me and I enjoy it. I'm not afraid to leave that comfort zone, but it is nice to come back to kind of a nurturing community who's been really good to me since we moved here, my wife and my two kids. So it's been nice.
What's the biggest close city? And then why'd you end up in Clinton?
The biggest, well, we have the Quad Cities. So right along the Mississippi, we have Davenport. If you're familiar with the area, Davenport, Rock Island.
I've been to Rock Island. I worked there for a while.
At the Arsenal?
Mm-hmm. I did threat analysis. That was one of my things I did as a civil engineer.
Yeah, so Rock Island's right here. So those are the biggest cities, and then we're about 180 miles almost due west of Chicago. We moved to Clinton, Iowa. My wife and I decided in 2011 we were going to get out of the military. We said, where do you want to go? And I had grown up just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, about 30 miles west. And we had been stationed in the Southwest at New Mexico. I was there for about 7 years, and my wife was there for about 5. And then we relocated to Dover, Delaware, which was our last duty assignment, back in the East Coast again. So we knew we wanted to be close to family. And I said, well, let's try the Midwest. And her parents live actually in Morrison, Illinois, which is right across the river from us. And it's funny, my kids.
It's good to be close to family.
It is. And my kids joke that we've been in 2 states in one day. So they just go back and forth the river here. And they have a beautiful farm over there. My wife's really into horses, and she's kind of blessed to have her horses and her passion and her hobby right across the river. Plus her mom and dad are here, and my sister-in-law who's ready to have their second child. So it was really important for us to be close to family, and it was kind of a no-brainer. We decided to leave, that we would plant some roots in the Midwest, and it's a beautiful part of the country. Everybody jokingly calls it a flyover state, but I tell you what, if you ever get a chance to make the drive and you can cruise around Interstate 80 or 88, and you can see beauty in the farm fields and the pastures and stuff, it's something really to be witnessed.
You got an Air Force base close?
Closest one would probably be, what would that be? Northern Illinois. So
Offutt's on the other side of the state.
Yeah, Offutt. I don't know which the closest. Scott, I would think, would be the closest one to me.
Yeah, you could go back in the reserves 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year.
Yeah, it's been contemplated. My wife actually may be getting back into the aeronautical career field, sort of. She just applied for a job at our municipal airport as a assistant airfield manager, which would be like a lot of sending NOTAMs, doing refueling type of stuff, runway checks, lighting repairs, and my wife is one of those things. I think she wrote on her cover letter, she's a mixture between grit and glitter. She likes to dress for success when she has to, but she's definitely not a woman who's shy of rolling up her shirt sleeves and mucking stalls every single day and cleaning chicken coops. And that's one of the reasons why I love her, because I don't ever have to worry about her saying, I need your help with this. She'll try on her own, and she'll probably do a better job than I will.
That can be a fun job, working in a little municipal airport. A lot of people really like. I have some friends who are retired, gone back to work doing that, and go and work at the little municipals. They're not making a lot of money, but they sure enjoy it.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, there's not a high traffic count. It's a Unicom, so there's no air traffic controllers there. So the airport is not controlled, but they just put in a larger hangar now. So we have some smaller private jets that can come in and wow. Yeah. So hopefully she gets it. Fingers crossed. She just sent her application and her resume in today, but we'll see. The hiring authorities that be, if they grant her the position, it would be nice. And it would be a city job as well. So some benefits, and it's time for her she wants to get back out into the workforce again. She's been kind of a stay-at-home mom since we moved here in 2011.
Well, Andy, I'm going to jump into the middle part of this show, which is going to be your success or even life principles, you might call them. And those are the 7 things that we've come up with off the list. Mm-hmm. And you've evolved with these, and we're going to talk about them. Do you want me to read them off first, or do you want to read them?
Well, that's up to you. It's your show.
I'll read them off. I like to go down really fast. Let me read what you came up with. Okay, 1, make peace with your past. 2, integrity first. 3, help others often. 4, control your emotions. 5, don't compare your success to others. 6, don't overthink things. And 7, I think this is one of my favorite ones, smile. It's contagious and it's free. So let's start with number 1, make peace with your past.
Yeah. I mean, don't let those skeletons in your closet stop you from moving forward. And, this is something that I had to do for the longest time, especially leaving the military, as I would constantly revert back to that. Or one of the things I would always say when I started my marketing business is I was apologetic for the fact that I didn't have a marketing degree. And one of my mentors came up to me one day and said, why do you say that? And I said, what do you mean? He said, you always lead into a conversation with saying, I have a marketing business, but I don't have a degree in marketing. He said, nobody cares. You're good at what you do. Stop. Make peace with your past. Don't worry about the fact that you don't have a degree and you didn't go to college and pursue that as an education. Just move forward. And I think that's important for me, is I kind of always need to reflect back on the past. You learn from that contextual view of what's happened in the past so you don't make the same mistakes over again, but don't let the past anchor you and stop you moving forward.
You said something after 11 years in the Air Force. You said you didn't really know how to run a business.
Mm-hmm.
How do you learn to run a business now?
Trial and error, my friend. Trial and error.
The military does not teach you how to run any business. That's for sure.
Yeah, great managerial skills. I mean, we learn a lot of Six Sigma and things that can be applied in the workplace.
You can work for a big corporation maybe, but it's hard to.
Yeah, the logistics of becoming an entrepreneur. I mean, a lot of it's just, you got to love the internet. I mean, a lot of our education, my wife and I derive straight from the internet. There's a lot of legal websites out there to help you. And really what I did is leveraging my ability to go out and make friends is I immediately joined the Chamber of Commerce here in Clinton, so the Clinton Area Chamber of Commerce, and their president, Nathan Songroth, who was actually a guest on my podcast, Thematics. He was the number one, who introduced me to StrengthsFinder, but number two, he's a lawyer by trade. And so this is a guy who was working in a firm. He was a lawyer, passed the bar, did the whole thing, was several years into a practice, and said, you know what, I'm not getting enough satisfaction out of this. I feel called to go and do something else. And he decided to get into chamber work. And he's the one who actually told me, stop telling people that you don't have a degree in marketing. But yeah, he helped me develop the business, and it was a good experience. But you got to always seek support, man. How many people out there try to do things on their own? Drop that pride and just start asking for help. It's so much easier.
When you come out of the Air Force, you were a team. You learned to work as a team in the Air Force, and you have your JAG, your legal, finance, personnel, all your folks out there. It's so organized, but you're part of a team, and now you're a team of one.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But you build that team. Now you're rebuilding that team with those key people.
Yeah. It's all about teamwork. I mean, I jokingly, today we said I'm a solopreneur. I'm an army of one. My wife actually is part of my team. So I guess that's the phrase I can't use, but the power of the internet, again, there's so many freelancing websites. There's so many places you can go and ask for help. You do not need to be a jack of all trades. And what we say as a GALLUP Certified Strengths Coach, I always tell people individuals are not well-rounded. We are good at certain things. We're not well-rounded, but we're not supposed to be. Because if we're well-rounded, we're never going to be amazing at one thing. Teams should be well-rounded. You should have those individuals that fill in those gaps and balance you out where you have lesser talents or weaknesses. So
I've never heard that before, but it sure made a lot of sense what you just said. That's very good.
And then number two, integrity first. You understand where that stems from. That's the first core value of the United States Air Force. And integrity has always been a big thing for me. And just to kind of briefly define that, integrity basically means doing the right thing even when nobody is looking. And whether it's, walking past that soda can that's laying on the side of the road and actually bending over and picking it up and putting it in the trash can that's 20 feet away, or as a business owner, always doing right by your customers, even if you can get away with something. And this is huge for me. This is what creates lasting businesses, what builds amazing brands, or what causes others to go under faster than Titanic, is when you start to deceive people merely because you want to make more money. And my wife and I have always been very fair when we do our invoicing and we do our proposals. And I'm a big proponent of integrity first. Do what is right, even when nobody is looking, because that's what really, separates the great entrepreneurs from those that are always going to be aspiring entrepreneurs.
Good. So number three, help others often.
Yeah. Help others, man. It's that simple. I mean, whether it's holding a door for somebody or, somebody's a few change short at the coffee shop, pony up that dollar if somebody's in front of you and their card's not working at the ATM or something like that. Maybe help them out. Help others. I'm a huge fan of karma, and whether you believe it or not, I think the more often that you help others, the more you will receive in the long run. So take that time to help a buddy move, help somebody cook dinner. If somebody's gone to the hospital and has an operation, help their family through that tough time, because you can't sit back and wallow in your own depression or wallow in your own misfortunes, because there's people out there that desperately need your help. And you know what? It's kind of selfish because it's super rewarding.
You said something, karma. And what is karma exactly?
I believe karma is that if you do the right thing, that eventually it will come back to you in the right way. And if you do the wrong thing, eventually that will come back to you in a negative way.
What is luck?
What is luck?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really believe in luck. So I have a hard time defining that. I think we pave our own path. So people say they get lucky, but maybe that's just, maybe that's your good karma coming back around. I've known enough people to realize that eventually in your life, if you decide to live a certain way and you do not help others and you do not have any integrity and you cheat others just for the pure advantage of making yourself more money, eventually somewhere down the road, something is going to happen that's not going to be pleasant for you. I don't wish it on anyone, but that's just kind of what my life teachings have taught me. So
very good. Control your emotions.
This was a tough one for me for a while. Number 4, control your emotions. I mean, for a long time, I've had a little bit of a temper. I would let anger kind of turn me towards a direction where I would make decisions that probably weren't best for the future. Or I would, and we're going to talk about this in number 5, but sometimes jealousy would creep up. And man, I tell you what, social media is a beast for this. If you're a person who can often get jealous by other success, it's a tough pill to swallow when you check Facebook in the morning before you start your day and you see maybe others, your friends are on a cruise, or somebody just got a big promotion, or somebody bought a brand new car or a brand new house or put an addition on their brand new home. You sometimes wallow in that jealousy. And I think it's important to control your emotions and just realize that, yes, you're not going to be a stone cold entrepreneur who gets, I mean, this is the thing, is in the world of entrepreneur, there's all these people that say, just wake up in the morning, go work out, think positive thoughts, everything is going to be great. That's not true. Okay. We're all human. We're all susceptible to our own emotions and feelings. But you got to learn to kind of control those. And when you feel that creeping in, turn the phone off, get out of Facebook. When you feel this anger creeping in, go for a walk or read a book. Do something to kind of distract yourself from that, and don't just hang out and stew in your own emotions.
So we just had a long weekend. Did you turn off that day at least?
I try to, yeah. So my podcast goes out on a Sunday. So Saturday, I found myself tinkering a little bit with my show notes and things like that. But Sunday and Monday were kind of family days where my wife and I actually have a few chickens on our property. We have 5 hens, and we decided to tear down the old fence and put up a new pallet fence, which is an amazing investment because we got 10 massive pallets for like $20, and we're able to slap some chicken wire. And it was a great time to get outside in the sun and enjoy our company of my family. And my kids played, and of course they fought and yelled and threw stuff at each other, but hey, kids are kids.
How old are they?
My son will be, on October 1st, he'll be 4. And on September 25th, my daughter will be 6.
Okay.
So they're close enough where they fight all the time. But what's funny is my daughter sleeps over at my niece's house. My son will say, "Where's sister and when she coming home?" And then she'll come home, and the first 5 seconds she's home, they're fighting about something. So it's quite an odd relationship. But I'm an only child, but from what I understand, when you have siblings that are close like that, that's the norm.
You know, I think when they get older, they get out of that. I have a 13 and a 15-year-old, both girls. Mm-hmm. And I came off one of my deployments, and I was upstairs sort of watching them, and they're in the hallway wrestling. I thought that was really cool. It was like girls wrestling. My wife got so mad at me, I didn't break it up.
Yeah, because they're probably.
So I remember how mad. So what are you doing? They weren't hurting each other. They're just wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was hysterical, though. I can relate to that. They will grow out of that, and that love for each other, I'm sure, will grow with your family.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
Number 6, don't overthink things.
Yeah. Don't overthink things. I mean, that's kind of what I said about earlier. Like, don't take yourself too seriously. Don't overthink things. Just kind of follow your gut. I mean, I think as human beings, we're very complex individuals, but there's times in our life where we feel like we're doing the right thing. And there's times in our life where we think maybe we should talk about podcasting. I mean, this is discussed on every podcast about podcasts is the term pod fading, where you get to a point where you realize it's just not going in the right direction. I mean, it's not that you're not putting enough effort into it and it's not a way to quit, but you sometimes realize those. So don't sit down and overthink things. Just make stuff happen. And I know podcasting, we'll go back to that. How many people have said, "Oh, I'm going to start my podcast soon," or "I want to get into podcasting," or "Oh, maybe next month I'll kick off my first show," or "I'm still working on the intro music," and "Oh, I got to buy this mixer first." Don't overthink it. Just do it. It's probably one of the most easiest things you can do. And sure, your first couple episodes are going to probably suck, but that's fine. Nobody launches a podcast and has an amazing first episode.
Now it's really easy with this, with Blab and an ATR 2100. There's no excuse, is there?
Blab, ATR 2100. These bad boys are actually on sale on Amazon right now for $39.99. If you're a Prime subscriber, you can get an ATR 2100 by Audio-Technica, $40, sent to you free 2-day shipping. and it's USB and XLR. So if you want to go and get a mixer and you want to do the whole mix minus thing, great. You want to just plug it into your USB port and start recording, do that.
And Blab handles that sound well.
Yeah, Blab's really good with it. And if, editing stuff, you download a free program like Audacity, and next thing you know, you're rocking and rolling. There's free filters out there like Levelator. So again, don't overthink things. Some people are different. And this is one of the things through Strengths Finder, I realize everybody's got their own unique set of talents. I mean, through the 34 themes that Gallup has created, the chances of somebody having the exact same top 5 strengths as you in the exact same order is 1 in 33 million. That's mind-blowing to me. I mean, that just shows us how unique we are as individuals. And this is from a 177 question assessment, and it proves that 1 in 33 million. So I know every podcaster out there is going to do things differently, but just don't waste time overthinking it, because, man, you could be the next big thing. You could be the next John Lee Dumas if you wanted to, and get out there and start talking to people and holding interviews like you are and like I do through my podcast. But, man, overthinking it, that puts the brakes on anybody's success.
Oh, that sounds good to me. And finally, smile. Yeah, it's contagious and free.
It's free. Yeah, smile. Life is way too short to keep that frown on your face. I mean, everybody's got a bad day, but I tell you what, there's nothing more refreshing than me in the morning. Sometimes when I go to the gym or in the afternoon and I pass somebody walking out of the gym and they flash me a smile and I flash one back and they say, "Have a good workout." And I say, "Oh, how was yours?" "Great." And you feel so much better. There's something contagious about a smile. And again, it costs absolutely nothing.
All the great leaders, if you look at them, they smile.
Yeah.
The real great leader, look at them in history. They're smiling someplace. Not always, but most of the time they're out smiling.
Yeah, it evokes a feeling of happiness. I mean, smile and even a touch. I mean, every once in a while, if you ever watch people out there that are very good communicators, they'll shake hands and they usually touch somebody's base of their elbow, or they maybe clasp and do the 2-hand thing, because there's something comforting about that. And I think a smile is one of those things where I walk around sometimes around this town and there's people out there grumbling and, they got a sour face on, like the world couldn't be any worse. But in reality, it could be a lot worse. So be thankful for what you got and be thankful that you woke up that morning. And it's, you don't want to upset people by being smiling all the time. But if you can,
at the wrong time, there's times when you got to be serious.
But if you can flash those pearly whites, it's free and it's contagious.
Hey, as we finish up the show, I'm going to ask, first of all, how do we get a hold of you? And I'm going to open it up for a few questions. And if anybody wants to put down on the text on the right side in the Blab question, and I'm also open up the show if anybody wants to jump on, ask Andy a question.
Yeah, so if you want to get in touch with me, the easiest way is via email, Andy, A-N-D-Y, at UnleashStrengths.com. That's UnleashStrengths with an S.com. You can hit me up on social media, Twitter at UnleashCSF. That's CSF as in Charlie Sierra Foxtrot. And you can hit me up on Facebook, Facebook.com/UnleashStrengths. Our podcast is Thematics, and that's available on iTunes. Just search Theme, Theme, Addicts, ADDICTS, and that show is all about helping people harness their natural talents to be more productive, effective, and overall happier person. So that's
very good. You can also, on iTunes, you also put in your last name and you'll find your show. It's another way to find shows.
Nice. See, that's the cool thing about having a very uncommon last name is you can find things just by a simple Google search of Sokolovich. You'll either find me, you'll find an Olympic runner, or you'll find a lot of Serbian individuals, because that's where my nationality stems from.
The Serbians, yeah, the free country. You ever been back to Serbia?
I have not. No, my great grandfather. He remained over there. I met my great grandmother on my grandfather's side. So my grandfather was 100% Serbian, but no, kind of a volatile country, and there's religious wars.
You missed the war.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things where I never got back there, but who knows? Someday maybe I'll return just for a short visit. And I believe my last name, Sokolovich, is kind of like Smith here in the United States. There's quite a few of us over there. So
Sokolovich. Very good. Well, no one's jumping on for questions. That's going to happen. And what I'm going to try to do is we're going to probably try to come up in the evening and do a podcast. I'm sort of experimenting with the different time zones and do a podcast like this. And I think other people will come on and it'll grow. And if you can do that every day and not over edit and get this up right away, I'll try to get this up inside a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no rush. But so Jim and I have had some success on Blab by just really a lot of it has to do with your title of your Blab. And we've used like specific keywords, i.e. Strengths Finder has really drawn people in. And him and I hosted one time, we were just goofing around, trying it out. And next thing you know, we had 4 or 5, 6 people actually come in and rotate through the seats and used us kind of as a sounding board to relay and reveal their top 5 and to get our opinions on things. And next thing you know, 2 hours had blown by and we had this full blown discussion, and it was a really amazing experience. And I asked every single one that popped in, like, how'd you hear about us? And they said, oh, we saw the word Strengths Finder. And either they remembered that assessment that they took in college or their workplace rolled it out and they just were curious. So they jumped in the Blab and they heard us talking. And then they decided they were going to kind of pop on in. And the other thing that's really cool is you can just join in with an app on your iOS device. And as long as you have a mic that has, or headphones that have one of these little mics on, the iPhones, especially the 6s now and soon to be released 6S, have amazing video quality, especially if you're on Wi-Fi. And then the audio through this is actually pretty good. So you can get some quality recordings out of that.
Very good. So as we close, give us a little forecast. What do you think the future is? What's going to happen in the next couple of years in this business?
In podcasting?
Yeah, in podcasting. And will it be podcasting or is it something else, a new name?
Yeah, I don't know. I think podcasting is something that's this has always been the topic on every show I've listened to is, it does have its ebbs and flows, its high points and its low points. But I think what more and more people are doing is, granted, everybody on the World Wide Web now has a voice, which I think is super cool. There's some people out there that I personally don't want to listen to, not my cup of tea, but I think podcasting is going to become an outlet for people like myself who love to communicate, number one. Although I love writing, I don't have the time to sit back and write a blog post every week. So what I do is I actually take my podcast and I get them transcribed via Fiverr, and I use that and I actually segment that out, and that becomes ebooks, that becomes blog posts, that becomes some additional content that I can actually sell. So what
have you created some content yet to sell?
I have. I've created a few ebooks. One is called Kickstart Your Top 5. That one's based on Strengths Finder, and the other one's called Strengths-Based Marketing and Advertising. And I don't do it to supplement my income. My marketing stuff really generates a massive amount of income for not a massive amount, but a majority of the income to support my. I know. I wish it was that case, to support my family. But there's so many things that you can do. It's easy for me to talk. It's not as easy for me to sit down and type. So I think what podcasting is going to be in the future is a way for you to create content and then try to figure out how to use that content. I refer to it as a content double tap in several different platforms. Again, whether it be ebooks or blog posts, it's just a very natural way of getting your ideas out. And people like to consume audio. And now that more and more podcatchers are out there, and when iTunes released the podcast app for iOS devices, that really blew things up to the next level, because now it's so simple to just open up that podcast app available through the App Store and type in whatever podcast you want to listen to or genre. And next thing you know, you're downloading the last 10 episodes and you're getting your listen on. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And one last area I'm going to talk about, since you're going to be under the podcast and solopreneur, maybe entrepreneur, solopreneur, because your wife is your partner. It's not just you.
Yeah.
And anyway, hey, your website, you mentioned that you have some graphic design experience. You have a beautiful website. I actually had the theme. I looked up the theme, and it's a nice website. How much of those graphics do you do yourself?
For which one? Is it the UnleashStrengths.com?
Yeah,
theme?
UnleashStrengths. Yep.
Yeah, so that's Grunge Experience.
Grunge,
and yeah, I do a few of those myself, but this is the thing is I knew that I was never going to be able to take my web development graphic design ability to a level where I felt like that was my best possible product, putting it forward. Mm-hmm. So I actually found a friend of mine who lives in a couple towns over, and he is a rock star web developer and a rock star graphic designer. So I get by. I know how to use Photoshop, and if I create things, it's to my liking, and I'll slap it on my web page. But if there's some things that I find that are just kind of causing me to spend way too much time developing a small graphic, I'll outsource it to him. And
I think that's my first dad is a good graphics designer to work with me, because I use Genesis Dynamic and do my own web work. Yeah. But
Canva.
The graphics is really an art.
Canva, Canva.com. If you're not familiar with that and you're in the world like we are in, man, that's rock solid, because they have I lost my train of thought. Templates. They have templates set up
Right.
for everything, all social media. I mean, all those. So if you're not a guy who's going to say, okay, I'm going to design this by this pixel, or the dimensions, Canva's got a template. I mean, they got templates now for magazines, so you can create your own magazine and send it out.
It looks really nice. Yeah, it does look very good, but it's still, there's nothing like a great designer who could put balance together.
Nope.
And all that.
And then there's 5.
Well, we got to sign off. What time is it back in your home? See, it's 7 here, so 9:10.
Yep, 9:02. According to my computer.
Oh, excuse me, 9:02, 7. That's right, just 2 hours. When the East Coast got a few more states to move over before we get to the East Coast, don't we?
Yep.
Eastern time. Well, thank you, Andy. I hope to see you at a conference. What's your next conference you're going to?
I don't know. I mean, I really want to make sure I get the podcast movement in 2016. I mean, that'll be in Chicago, so that's just a short little jaunt for me. And I think Jim Collison, if he can make it work, we might do a little carpooling because he's 5 hours west of me in Omaha, like straight up due west. And if he can make the drive out here, we may cruise on out there. But I always try to get out to Omaha for any kind of strengths type stuff, and even if it's just to hang out with him and kind of stay within that environment of like-minded individuals. But that's the next one coming up. I got a few speaking gigs that I'll be attending here shortly. And then Leadership Iowa kicks off on October 7th is my first weekend of that. So I'm excited about that.
So you live close to Highway 80?
I do. Yeah. Not too far off the beaten path there. So I'm really
So just get on 80, keep on going, and I'll see you in a couple of days and I'll buy you breakfast.
Yeah, really. That's, I don't have like when Jim talks to me, he says, come out to Omaha. I really have no excuses because although it's 5 hours, I mean, you really could probably set your cruise control and fall asleep and you'd end up there. There's no turns or anything to get to that point. So it's a nice little driving experience.
Very good. So we're going to sign off the recording. We're all off the recording.
Okay.
And thank you for coming on.
Hey, no, thanks for having me, Bill. I really appreciate it.